We all know that North Myrtle Beach is the place to be if you want to experience our state dance, shag. And we all know that before 1968, the name North Myrtle Beach didn't even exist. But here are some facts I bet you didn't know.
Right after Hurricane Hazel hit, we came down one Saturday afternoon to see what was going on. And you had to have a pass to get beyond Highway 17 toward the ocean. And to get a pass, you had to have property, but we didn't. So he knew a man who had a motel, a little motel up at what's Crescent Beach now, and this man offered to let him use his pass so we could go in and look. So we did, and we went in at the entrance where you go in now from that Dodge gas and chicken place, you know, went in there and then turned to the left on Ocean Boulevard, or tried to, but the sand, everything was washed over there. You could see washing machines and things in the middle of the road, and stoves. It was just demolished totally. I'll never forget that. That was October '54.
When we got our work done, after we got home from school, we did our feeding up, and then the shrimp boats would come in between 3 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We'd go down there and head shrimp and cull fish and get rid of the shrimp. We cull for Hugh McGinn and Chris Jewell and Bob High and Robert Mintz and all those guys that had shrimp boats. And Mr. Chris would always come in last. That was Frank Jewell's daddy, and he would have, he had a small boat about 28 feet long, but he'd have sometimes 4 boxes of shrimp on that. And Hugh McGinn, he'd come in, he'd go out and stay for a week at a time and come in, and he had about 40 boxes on there. He had a manta ray one time. I remember that manta ray was about a 1.5 feet thick, and it weighed a lot more than a Volkswagen, a lot more. And I was amazed. That's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen when I was down there. And these tourists used to come by and watch us head shrimp and everything. And I think Nico Cookies by Lance was coming out then, and just for a showmanship, I would take a raw shrimp and wash it off good and eat it raw and put a Nico cookie in my mouth. I was just doing that for entertainment because I know they were viewed as disgusting.
Well, I just hear them talking about, you know, like all the things that were dirt roads, what the hospitals used to be like, you know, how right after Labor Day there was not a single car in North Myrtle Beach, just what a ghost town it was. And I got to see a little bit of that, but, you know, my generation was definitely more when things were starting to become year-round tourism. And even my dad, he taught at North Myrtle Beach High School for 8 years before I was born. The year I was born, he started at Coastal Carolina University as a math professor. And just hearing him tell stories about the kids and just the generation and how kids were different and what was expected of them, and, you know, how he could carry a paddle in his back pocket and could paddle his own children. That wasn't just for the principal to do. And, you know, just corporal punishment and that sort of thing. And even integration. I think when he first started teaching was one of the first years that North Myrtle Beach was integrated, and how that changed the face of North Myrtle Beach High School from Wampee High School, or I think it was Chestnut is what it was called, I can't remember. But just hearing him talk about those things, and he coached tennis and baseball and basketball and football and the students that he had. And actually one of my favorite stories that just came to mind was my mom was 19 years old when they got married, and it was senior prom and Roll It Around, and they were at the Maritime, and I forget, it was something else at the time, and it was a hotel. And my mom ran into Vanna White, and she was like, "So Vanna, what do you want to do when you graduate high school?" She's like, "I want to be a model." And my mom's like, "Oh, good luck with that, sweetheart." You know, because back then modeling was not something that, you know, it was something everybody wanted to do, but that nobody really ever did. You know, and then obviously she moved out to California, met Merv Griffin, he fell in love and gave her a job, and she's still turning letters for Wheel of Fortune. But, you know, heard my dad talk about teaching her math, and my mom, like, good luck with that whole modeling thing.
Gayle and I both participated in Sun Fun. We had a lady and a gentleman, Melvin and Mary Gould, that owned the beach shop.
Right.
And they always had a float in Sun Fun. And I rode on the float for several years, and Gayle rode on it.
on the float.
And
She
I
went
was
even
in,
farther.
Yeah, I was in Miss Sun Fun pageant, but they did it differently back then. Miss Gould called me and asked me to participate, and what we did, we ate lunch. We went to a luncheon, everyone dressed with hats and gloves and outfit, and the judges were part of the luncheon, and then they took you in a separate room and they interviewed you about the area and your knowledge of the area. And that's how they did Sun Fun, quite different from the way they do it now. But another event that comes to mind too was the tricentennial of South Carolina, which was 1970, and I was the North Strand Centennial Queen, but everyone dressed up in like old Southern Belle garments. The men dressed as they did in the 1600s or 1700s, and then of course they had a South Strand one, and then we all met at the convention center for the big ball or event.
What I miss about, you used to could drive down to Cherry Grove and drive right out on the beach, and if you wanted to take a suntan, you could park your car out there and take a suntan or whatever you wanted to do. And I miss that, really. I miss that a lot. And we used to race the cars on the beach, and we would do a bootlegger's turnaround. You'd do about 70 and pull up the emergency brake and spin around. We did some crazy things when I was a boy, and I remember that some of the guys used to see how fast they could drive through the through the fishing pier poles and stuff. And one of the guys didn't make it one time, and he got killed. And so I think that ended the driving fast through the piers, or maybe the police ended it. I don't know, but it ended. And we also, the Crescent Beach Airport, we used it as a drag strip. And there was nobody down there, and there was no rules or any regulations, but I remember one day I had a new 54 Chevy, and I was drag racing it with some of the guys out there, and I saw my brother, C.B. Berry, come out there, and I didn't want him to see me. So anyway, I pulled off. And just as I pulled off, I had a flat tire. I couldn't believe it. I said, maybe he saved my life. I don't know. But anyway, that was fun. And that went on for about a year, and then they stopped that. So that was the end of that.
I can remember in the middle of the night that the fire alarm went off, and everyone in town, all the men used to go to be volunteer firemen. So they went, our dad went up there, and it was to evacuate everyone. So they went from street to street to tell everyone to leave. We went to Wampee High School, is where we went. And I don't remember one window blowing out of that old school. And in the cafeteria, they even prepared meals for us there. And we stayed there till the next day. And I can remember going outside. It was very calm. It was the eye of Hurricane Hazel. And someone, I couldn't tell you who, I can remember saying, don't leave yet, let's don't leave yet. And all of a sudden, it switched around and came back. And we came to the beach. I remember our home was not hurt in any way. It was wonderful. So, and I can remember our mom and dad letting soldiers come in, the National Guard, and they took baths in our house at that time. And I remember AC just driving around, trying to drive around and look. I can remember growing up with Pat and Philip Tillman. Philip and Jack were in my classroom, and their home on the beach, they were on the ocean front, was totally destroyed during Hurricane Hazel. So many people lost, and I have a best friend whose home was on the boulevard, and I can remember it just washing through the whole downstairs of her house at that time. And they would not let people come into the beach at all. You could come in only at certain times, and at night no one could come in. You just had to stay in your house. That's what you had to do. The water, I'm told by AC, because he stayed kind of down here, went all the way up to Hillside Drive. The ocean itself came up to Hillside Drive, kind of a little bit past there, but Hillside Drive, let's say. And I just can remember houses gradually being replaced. You couldn't even see the boulevard because sand was, and houses were totally over the boulevard themselves. I can remember that. And I can remember that my 6th grade teacher, whom I loved, Mrs. Parrott, she lived in Cherry Grove on the ocean front and ran an apartment. She and her husband did. Somehow or the other, she was missed. She did not hear it. And she got up to go to school. And she said, all of a sudden, I felt my house moving. And they barely got out. And I can remember one thing she told me. I was in her class that year. I was in 6th grade. And I can remember, you know how children question? And I can remember her saying, look, you don't cry over spilt milk, you just go on. And I can remember that always from her saying that. And she lost everything that they had. And they built back. So it was a slow process, but what came back was good.
So as you can see, we're hard at work documenting history for the future North Myrtle Beach Area Historical Museum. And here's one more fact. We need you. Come join us in our effort to preserve North Myrtle Beach area history.